Welcome to the Forest School Podcast, a show where I, Lewis, and my co-host, Wem Southerner, set out to explore a shared pedagogy. It's a space where cerebral thinking matters more than craptivities, where educational purpose outweighs pretty resources, and where inclusion is more than just a buzzword. Join us as we overthink the trivial, deep dive into whatever sparks our dopamine, and reflect on what it means to truly hold space for others, holistically and without judgment. Thanks for being here. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Right,
anyway.
There's mud. There's mud everywhere. There's mud in parts of me that I didn't know could get. Oh, my brain is full of mud. Just there is so much, and so this is my response to people telling me that it's raining is now how is there more left? It hasn't. I know what the water cycle is. It has to fucking evaporate it back up, and it hasn't done that.
What I've been saying.
Have you got left?
Yeah. Where does it come from? I know. I've started looking outside and going, guys, it's raining. What the hell? And I really enjoy myself. No, everyone else is like, yeah, whatever. Shut up. You're not funny.
Well, I'm an outside person, and I could tell you to fuck off.
I texted you the other day because you were like, why don't we record the podcast in the woods? And I was like, are you fucking joking? I'm an inside cat now. I don't do that in January or February or whenever it was. What? Sorry, why? Why would I want to do anything outside now?
And I was like,
what?
It's like 2 degrees though. It's 2 degrees and quite good. In my head, that was good.
The weather's lovely.
In my head,
the weather's lovely.
Hey.
It was also raining as well. It was because it wasn't that long ago, so it was a day when it was raining. Yeah. But obviously it wasn't raining maybe as much as it had on other days. So you were like, oh, it's perfect. It's beautiful.
I probably wasn't being hit with rain as I sent you the message. And that was enough for me to be like, let's go. Let's absolutely
The rain wasn't horizontal. Do you know what? I think if you can, you should just insert the song, the I Hate Being Outside Sideways Rain song here for any listener that hasn't heard it, because that was a long time ago now, but I feel like you don't need to talk anymore. You can just insert the song here and then they'll know how you're feeling right now.
This is how I was feeling right now. Enjoy the song.
Yeah.
There's rain inside my boots. She's showing me all of her undesirable attributes, and north winds are blowing cold. Little mouths are hungry, but the bread is covered in mold. Oh, I hate being outside. They said try forest school, it's great, but I think they lie. Who would choose to be out in the sideways rain? I feel my smile washing off and spinning down the drain. Scent of steam horns in my nose. A little stick has worked its way in between my toes. Someone just sneezed in their hand and wiped it on my clothes. It's fucking disgusting, but on and on it goes. Why I hate being outside. They said try forest school, it's great, but I think they lie. Who would choose being outside. I hate 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 being outside. Oh, I hate being outside, being outside, being outside, being. Oh, I hate being outside. They said try forming school, it's great, but I think they lie. Who would choose to be out in the sideways rain? I feel my smile washing off and spinning down the drain. I hate being outside. It's shit and windy. I hate being outside. You get all the coughs and shit in your throat. I hate being outside. You'll get wet and all your clothes are really heavy. I hate being outside. It's just like snotty, you've got to pack everything away. And it's raining, and all your tarps are wet, and all the rope's wet as well. And then when you untie the knot, and the rope whips you across the face, and it's like a wet dog's tail just slapping you across the thing. And I hate being outside. Right, positive news though. Positive news. Yeah. I got. Oh, hang on. Move this post-it note for people that are looking. I got this book. The Score by. Now I wrote down how to pronounce it to look it up. Thi Nguyen. Mm-hmm. Right, and it's called. And it's How to Stop Playing Someone Else's Game. And I have to be totally honest. I got this because I thought it was going to be about games and scoring systems, and I was like, ooh, that's juicy about play, and I'm a person that likes to learn about play. Actually, what I got sucked into was a very deep and philosophical thing about the world and about metrics and about controlling people and self-reflection and autonomy. He's a philosophy professor, so like it starts with a bit about games. It's the first book in a really long time that I have picked up, listened to. So I listened to the first chapter of it, and then I really wanted to go back and read more. Like I was trying to find time to be like, I'll do the washing up because I want to listen to a bit more of this. I'll probably go and move wood chip for. I've sent this book to a few people. One of them I was moving wood chip for like 4 hours on my own, and I listened to just loads of this book. A book hasn't caught me in quite this way for quite a long time, which is a testament to how well it is written and the structure of it. I did recently finish a book which I'm 80% sure was AI edited, if not written, and I felt really cheated at the end of it because I didn't really pick it up until I got to the end, and I was like, every other paragraph starts with, it's not about, it's about, and I was going, oh no, there's some decent stuff in this book, and now I don't trust it. Anyway, this book's amazing. So it is all about like scoring systems and metrics and like what does it mean to play. But wider than that, it looks at the most interesting thing that I think was in this book to me was this idea of value capture, which I haven't come across before. Have you come across value capture before?
Nope.
So, oh my God, I've got so many notes about this book and I need to I should have put them in a better order. So one of the ideas in this book is that when we are playing, we are like looking for what's important to us in this moment. We are, one of the definitions they have is that to play a game is to voluntarily take on unnecessary obstacles to make possible the activity of struggling to overcome them. So, I did a video recently where I was talking about like Monopoly, and you could just be like, oh, the idea is to get money. Great. Shove my hand in the box, take the money out. That's the game. You go, no, because the obstacles are the other players and the system and the whatever else. Or basketball, and you go like, well, okay, well, I can do I can just put the ball in there. I could get a ladder. And it's like, but what if you couldn't use ladders? What if we intentionally put obstacles in, or, and things like that. And this idea that they talk about something called striving play, which I really love. And they talk about striving players and achievement players, and this mindset that we go into games with. So they talk about the fact that an achievement player genuinely wants to win at games. They want to win before the game. They want to win during the game. And afterwards, they want to win, or they wanted to
That's
have won.
That's a really great explanation of the type of person I hate.
Okay.
Like...
I don't think you do.
Thanks, author. No, obviously I'm being facetious. Yeah. I just mean that is when I play certain types of games with people, I can put them in that category, and I go, you want to play this game in a completely different way to me. Yeah. Like, I have zero interest in that, like zero. And you really do. And I kind of find that amusing. Like, but also they might play some types of games that I would just never even bother playing, because the game is about facilitating that kind of play. Yeah. So I'm being very facetious and very judgy.
Because
sorry.
No. I was giving you a get out clause, because I know we have worked with people who are like that, where you're like, hey, for that person, winning is more important, and so we just shelve everything.
I was thinking about grown-ups as well. Not kids in the woods.
So it sounds like you and I are both in this other group, which is striving players, who only want to win during the game. Before the game, it doesn't matter. Want to win during the game, and after the game, as soon as the game is finished, any like lingering feelings. I guess maybe there's some sort of lingering feelings of like, no, if it went badly, but you don't sit on it for ages and do whatever else. So I really, really find that interesting as a concept to think about when you're facilitating like play for young people. And thinking about like, because what they don't go into this book, which I think is really interesting, and maybe we can discuss this now, is whether that is a fixed mindset thing or a growth mindset thing. So in other words, like, are people striving players, and you will not ever make them super competitive? Oh my God, I want to, I am the most competitive person you've ever met. Or like, could you get someone who is like, I want to win, and that's all that matters? Could you ever teach that person, or change that person, or support that person into becoming a striving player? Is it nature? Is it nurture?
Does it go into what makes somebody one type or another?
No, not in this book. It just talks about the different types of player. And I think because there's elements where you might be a striving player in word games, but an achievement footballer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so you might be able to then, because I was thinking about like, I'm in the role I have out in the woods and facilitating stuff, and how do I, if through the stuff that we're going to talk through, hopefully we kind of get to this point where like striving play is really beneficial, not the only thing in the world, but really beneficial. How do we encourage people into striving play, without being like, you shouldn't care about it. The thing that you care about, wrong. And that's often really hard, isn't it? Like I said, when we work with people who are like, for sometimes very legitimate reasons, are like, winning is incredibly important to me because of other things that have happened to me, or because of the way that my brain is wired up. Absolutely have to do that thing.
Well, it's a vulnerable place, isn't it? It's although you could also say that the achievement play is a vulnerable place to be, because you really, really care about it. So the stakes are very high. It really matters if you fail. So you could actually argue that type of play is more risky to even engage in the first place, because if you don't win, you're going to really, really care about it, and the odds of you winning might be quite low. Although maybe that limits the type of game that you will engage in the first place, because you only then start to play games which you're pretty confident you're going to succeed at. Like if you're a super fast runner, you're going to just be like, running game please, I want to play the running game. Yes, who wants to? And everyone's a bit like, do you know what, I'm a bit bored of playing the running game with you now, because we all know you're going to win and it's quite boring for us. So yes. Interesting.
It's an interesting kind of concept to think through. And they were talking about, like, so in I guess I'm jumping around my notes, so thinking about that thing of like, can you facilitate it? Is it something that people, you know, are innate within them? Is it something that comes and goes? One of the bits in this book referred to games as yoga for your agency. In that, okay, so there's a bit in here where they're talking about agency and autonomy and all these things, and saying that like games can give you an opportunity to care about something, almost like a mask. So you could, and saying that like, I think the example that this person talks about is playing board games with their partner in the evenings, when they're saying that like, I absolutely love my partner dearly. I will crush them for an hour. I will be intent on crushing them into the ground. And then we put the game away and we have dinner. Right. And describing that kind of like mask wearing of like, hey, what does it feel like to try really hard doing all these things? But also the flip side of the sort of alternative of that, which is that they're saying that you can use games as a tool to maybe be like, I don't get on with this person 100%, but we are now on a team. And in the context of the game, I am able to be like, whatever you want to do, that's what we're going to do. Our goal is to get my wife. We must destroy, you know. And that kind of like practice at social masking and social switching. Does that make sense? You know, I feel like that's a semi-relatable kind of thing that I've seen in a lot of games, and also seen people come up against the challenge of that mask. When this was one thing that I thought was like, when you're not given choice in that scenario. So that's one thing that I can really remember being as a teacher and doing that thing where you go like, groups of 5. I'm going to put you into groups of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're a group of 5. You're trying to do whatever this thing is. But those people haven't had agency to be able to choose like, hey, I don't really get on with Wem, but for the purpose of this game, I know Wem's a great player, and so we'll go and do that thing. You're being told that you have to work with that person, even if you don't want to. And so maybe you don't, then it's almost like, can you put the mask on non-voluntarily? Does that make sense? I've waffled for a little bit.
I was just thinking about situations where that might happen, where you were forcibly put into a group. And I was thinking and reflecting that it's not something that often happens to you as an adult. Like if you're at a conference or a workshop or a thing where you might have to work together in a group to do something, there is usually a sort of element of choice. Like I was thinking when we were at the Forest School conference a few years ago,
the symposium,
I think it was Sarah Knight. The conference.
I know what you're about. Yes, go on.
Got we took an item from a bucket as we went in, and it was a button or a hat or a pine cone or a whatever, and then you had to find the other people who had a similar item.
All the people with beads go over here. All the people with beads go over here.
Yeah, but I feel like even then there was a bit of agency, because no one's watching you, no one's policing that. You could go, oh, actually, my bead looks a bit like a button. I'm actually going to go over there. Like, I'm sure some people did that. Like, it didn't really matter. It was, here is a suggestion to help you, but it really doesn't matter. And the only times you're really like, you definitely have to work with that person that I can think of is in school, where a teacher would put you in those groups. I can't think. I'm
thinking maybe like organised sports clubs, which could go higher. You could, if you were on, say, and I don't mean like, Sunday 5-a-side, bunch of people rock up, because that is a team that you've chosen to join. But let's say you enjoy semi-competitive football. A coach might say, right, you guys are bibs, you guys don't put bibs on.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
your
yeah.
team, and you're not getting to choose that necessarily, but you then immediately, the expectation is that you put on the mask and you act as people who have, you know,
Yeah.
which is an
Yeah.
interesting thing. I think
Yeah, it's
you're right.
interesting that we put ourselves in those kind of situations. And I guess you could, if you were looking at it from an evolutionary perspective, you could say that there's some benefits in being able to do that, in being able to kind of socially switch or socially masked in order to cooperate with a certain person or group of people for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, definitely.
In order to achieve something, even if that achieved goal is just like entertainment, you know?
Yeah.
And the kind of other like weird community things where you might be, I mean, this is kind of stretching the definition of play a bit maybe, but yesterday in my village hall, I set up like a lantern making workshop. So we're making lanterns for a wassail. Nice. And I just said to the whole community, like, there's lantern making. I didn't know who was going to come. I didn't know, you know, so it's just like a random selection of people from the village. And you are sort of, playing together, like making stuff. And you just all have to get on. And there's certain things that we're obviously doing in a kind of socially masky way to try and grease the wheels of that procedure. Like, who would like a cup of tea? And how would you like your tea? And going around and going, oh, look at yours. It's really great. Look at your lead. Oh, lovely. You know, so like even situations like that, I think they're quite rare, but definitely, I like that phrase, yoga for your agency, where you have to just be like, okay, we've all decided we're going to play this game, or we've all decided we're going to engage in this social activity. In order for it to succeed, we need to just get on.
And some of those things become manners, don't they? So like like this is not what we discuss at the dinner table, or like I only recently found out. Do you know the thing about putting your elbows on the table is because people used to mostly have trestle tables.
No.
So it used to be two, like sawhorses, like two able. So putting your elbows on the table would flip the table.
Right.
So it's one of those things that's like, oh, it's socially conducive that we don't all lean on the table and break the thing, or like, the idea of discussions is because like we have to eat together and we have to use knives, so we don't discuss politics, health, whatever, while we all have knives. Agreed? Yes. That's the origin of it. Like that's the origin
amazing.
Of like that's why there are like dinner table things and stuff like that. That those things then become,
That's really interesting.
There's a bit.
Can I go back to something? Go.
I was just going to say there was a quote that sounds very similar. So there's a quote in here where they talk about games in our youth being where have I put the word? They're vaccinations to scoring systems. So they talk about this idea of like immunology, where it's like a little bit of the thing goes in, but not in a way that can harm you, just in a kind of inert way, because you, and then your body is ready for it in another way. And they're saying that games are a way of introducing ourselves to those like socially conducive scoring systems, but in a way that we can go, and now I've had my limit and I'm going to stop. I'm going to put the board game away. I'm going to not play running games anymore. And so they're talking about that is like, sort of testing our systems and getting us ready for an exposure to ideas that when you then are in a wider community as an adult, you're like, some of these might not be optional. So it's probably best that you've explored them in a fun way first. Go on, what were you going to say?
It was just I wanted to go back to what you were saying about striving play, and that idea that you would voluntarily sign up to engage in something where there are obstacles, and it's like, oh no, it's not interesting unless there are some obstacles to overcome or some hurdles or whatever. And that just reminded me of teaching drama at secondary. And like, while you were talking about this, it really reminded me of drama lessons, including that thing of like, you guys are working in a group, and I'm going to like basically force you to play. I'm going to force you to role play the length of a drama lesson, and obviously that's some people's worst nightmare. And but you know, if you imagine the conditions in the drama studio are all okay, everyone's getting on all right, everyone's up for it. If you're asking people to create a piece of drama, even a small thing during the course of a lesson, as opposed to like a whole school play, you're going, right, can I create this scenario, act it out? What did that feel like? What did you notice? La la. There's a sweet spot about constraints, about going, you're going to do this, but one of you always has to be standing up, one of you always has to be sitting down, and one of you has to be lying on the floor. Or, you all have to, do you know what I mean? And to if there are no constraints, something about the way the human brain works, A, finds it harder without any constraints, and B, even if you do it, it's just a bit rubs. Like everyone's just a bit like, that just wasn't very satisfactory, and it wasn't satisfactory to watch this piece of drama because where it's like the problem solving,
the obstacles.
Something about the constraints and the obstacles sort of kickstarts the creativity and the problem solving, and that is actually very interesting to think about, especially if we're thinking about facilitating play with groups of people, to just like bear that in mind, because a lot of it obviously comes from the participants, and and you might observe that they are also putting in these kind of constraints themselves. But also, if you're in a place where somebody needs a higher level of intervention and you need to be a bit more of a leader in some play, what might you kind of involve with that, and how to find, because if the obstacle's too great, then that also kills the game.
Yes.
If it's too hard. Yeah.
There's something about choosing an agency and autonomy in there, isn't there? About like, you could model for yourself, like, I'm going to see if I can get a pine cone in that bucket, but I'm going to see if I can do it on one leg. Is an entirely different experience to like, stand here, no, one leg, one, get your fucking foot off the floor, one leg, right? That is an entirely different experience because of the agency, the autonomy, but you could be like, well, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's the same game. It's not the same game because of the agency and the autonomy and stuff.
It reminds me of that experience that you had at a school trip where the person made your class all play the throwing game where you have to, like, if you miss the ball, you have to go down on one knee. That kind of like play facilitation, which is very military style. You're cheating, you're not following the rules. And again, like, with a bunch of mates, you could decide.
For people that haven't heard that story, I went to a camp retreat thing with my class, and someone was playing that game. The leader had decided that they were going to do that game where they threw the ball to each other, and if you dropped the ball, then you went on one knee, and if you dropped it again, it was two knees, and an autistic child in my class couldn't catch the ball, and so the leader was like, you need to go down on one knee, and it was a wet, muddy field, and he had sensory stuff going on, and he didn't want to put one knee down, and he like sort of stood there stunned, and the guy like took the ball away from the other kids and was like, no, we're going to wait until this person puts their knee down. And this kid like knelt and hovered his foot, like his knee, like a bit above the grass. And the guy was like, no, it has to be on the ground. Like, he was so, it was awful. And I eventually just came in and took the kid and went, we're going to go and do something different for a minute. We'll see you in a bit. And just was like, oh, fuck that. Anyway, that's the story. But okay, so there's a bit in here. Oh, God, sorry.
Sorry.
It still jangles me.
Yeah. Well, it jangles me and I wasn't even there.
So there's a bit in this book where they talk about those kind of, and we're talking about those unnecessary obstacles that we take on. And more often this book is talking about games rather than play.
Yeah.
And I think this author would have a different view of what those two things necessarily are. So in the world of games, board games, sport, wide games, those kind of things, it says that games help to mold, shape, and heighten the beauty in the player's actions, not in the game. So they're talking about this thing, which is that, like, if you're watching a film, the film is the thing that's beautiful. If you're listening to a piece of music, if you're kind of in that consumey way of interacting with art, like, that's the beautiful thing. But like, and he's talking about different medias and how they evolve, and saying that he thinks that lots of board games and video games have fallen into the trap of trying to make themselves valid in quotes art by going down the same routes that film and photography and painting have done, in that people talk about video games in the like visual brilliance, or they talk about kind of the board game art on the cards, and that's what makes it valuable, that's what makes it valid. And his point is like, no, what's beautiful is process beauty. It's the way that you force someone to like, it's like dribbling a basketball doesn't exist without the obstacles. But watching someone dribble is a process that is beautiful, that only exists because of the obstacles. Watching someone play a strategy game in a way where they move things around, actually, it doesn't matter. You're not putting the card down and going, what a beautiful card you've played. You're watching someone move and be like, God, your brain has come up with something incredible there, and you've thought this, and this kind of focus on those obstacles heightening the process beauty that exists, in that kind of, and it's so close to that process not product thing that we see in a lot of forest school spaces and non-judgmental, all those spaces where we're like, oh, it's not about the outcome, but it is about but I've never really highlighted that, like the reason that thing is beautiful is because you forced someone to like show God, the way you've navigated around that is incredible. It makes me think, do you ever have that drama game where it was like, it's similar things, but it's like walk from point A to point B, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to put a chair in the way, and how do you get around the chair? How does your body like move around the chair? You can like swing around the chair, you can go over the chair, you can go through the chair, but you're achieving the same thing as when there was no chair there. But it's way more interesting to see how someone gets around a chair than it is to see them get from A to B.
Yes. And the interactions with objects. I mean, you could go down a whole like post-humanist, socio-materialist route if you wanted here, couldn't you? And talk about like these other items being like agents in the play and what affordances they give, and watching a human reaction to a non-human thing. And
it's so lush.
Yeah,
that thing.
It's great. I think that's very valid. Yeah,
it's so valid, and so like, again, it makes me wonder: can you just get people to understand that through modelling? Do you have to say something explicit? If I wanted to pass that feeling on, does that come from me modelling and sort of verbalising out loud, like, whoa, I never would have thought of getting round the tree that way, or like, I have never seen somebody I'm trying to work out how you also do it non-judgmentally without being like, what excellent gameplay you've done. So this is me on the spot trying to work out, like, can you voice that? Could you, when we talk about that, like community of learning, like, could you have a community that values process beauty inside of games? And how would you instill that? Would you instill it through like observing out loud those kind of creative examples? Would you have it through like does it come out in the reflections at the end of the sessions, like, oh, okay, who's done something like who's done something like weird and strategically beautiful, who's got round something that was tricky, which is a different question to that thing of like, who's used resilience today? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Who's used perseverance? It's something about being a bit more woo-woo wafty and been like, who's done something incredibly creative around an obstacle? Like, I can't, it's not going to be me, but
No, but I know what you're saying. I wonder if there's because when you first said, I don't know how I would like model that or like show that that's valuable, I thought you meant to other adults who might also be in a position of facilitation, who maybe aren't as well versed in valuing play, for example. Sure. So I was thinking, you could definitely be like just pointing out to the person, God, look at the way they're doing that. I would never thought of doing that. But if you're thinking about reflecting with the people that were involved, I wonder, because I was thinking, maybe it's an adult thing or somebody who is observing but outside of the play. It might be quite difficult if you're playing a game, whether it be a role play game or running a wide game or whatever, that if you're in the game and you're in flow, is it possible to then step outside the game, metaphorically, to observe somebody else's strategy and go, you might do it in a more...
That would be a bit breaking the fourth wall, I think.
Exactly. I just don't know if your brain is capable of doing that, or if it is, it might be in a more unconscious way, in terms of like, oh, they're using that strategy, cool, I'm going to do that too. Do you know what I mean? Or, oh, I need to react to that and stop them doing that strategy quickly, because you're like still in that, like, you're in flow, is the only way I can think of to describe it.
Okay, you've mentioned the word flow. There's a bit in the start of this book where the person is talking about the purpose of something versus the goal of something, and saying that like the goal might be to get the most money in Monopoly, or the goal is to like, you know, catch all the rabbits' tails and take all their tags not real rabbits, in a game of hunters and rabbits. But saying that like that's the goal, but the actual purpose of the activity is social connection, and that people often, you know, that's where he's talking about achievement players, it's all about the goal, and striving players, it's all about the purpose, and that you can reflect on these things differently. And he talks about fly fishing. This guy's going on about a few different hobbies he's had, and talks about fly fishing, and he describes fly fishing as like he really liked fly fishing, and then his friend was like, actually I don't really care about catching to eat, so I'm gonna like catch and release. And then they were like, what if I actually don't even, you know, they sort of peeled it back and were like, what if I don't even care about catching? And they like stood in the river for 2 hours, and they were like, no, doesn't work. Right? Doesn't work to peel back that far. And so he talked about that state of like, I don't think it's quite flow, but he describes fly fishing as the sensual act of information management.
Oh, I reckon that is flow.
I think it might be close to flow, but I thought it's because it doesn't necessarily involve moving, but he's describing this thing of being stood in the water, and you're taking in the river, and you're taking in the ripples and the wind and the shadows, and you are fully immersed. And like the goal is catching a fish, but that's not actually what he's getting from it. What he goes away from, the win-lose at the end of it was like, did I live it? Was I in that moment?
But he stood in the river for 2 hours without fishing, and he said that wasn't it.
Exactly.
And he was still getting all of that information.
Yes, because he's saying that you have to have the goal. The goal has to exist in order to focus your information management. Because it's like being in the river was not enough, because he had no reason to focus on the shadows, no reason to focus on the ripples, no reason to focus on those things. And so his brain could go, think about the emails, think about the food shop, think about the whatever else. But saying that the goal is the bit that makes you kind of put horse blinkers on and go, just this for a bit.
Well, that's the play frame, isn't it? That's the play frame.
Go on, keep
on
going.
Top. So the play frame being the place where the play is happening, whether that be a real place like a basketball court, or an imagined place with boundaries. You know, we're playing at fly fishing, and that happens in the river, and the parameters are we use this equipment and we use this equipment, and we do talk or we don't talk, or we do, you know, the processes, the accepted, that's the frame. So without the fishing, there's no frame, so you're less aware. But what I was thinking while you were saying that was, I was trying to explain to somebody the other day about how the type of forest school that you and I facilitate, yes, it's about nature connection, but it isn't, hello families, join our forest school because you will learn about the trees and the birds, and you will learn to value nature through the nature connection that we do. Like, that is not what we do. It happens alongside, it happens through, it happens whilst, it happens around. Stealth. Yeah, and like, so you could apply that logic about, you need the objective, you need the goal, you need the play frame on top of the lived experience in order to help you process the information. That you could argue that is what's happening at the kind of forest school that we have done. Is kids play in this space, and that helps them to process the information about this space. If they weren't able to play, and if they were like, this is just how we facilitate, right? Like,
Sure.
They're doing what they want to do and deciding what their goals are or their aims are, and through that they're experiencing the more than human elements of that place. Yeah. Oh, it's so juicy, isn't it?
So juicy. It is that thing. The nature connection thing was really, I felt was really relevant, where it's like, specifically, it made me think about those like real hardcore, straight down the line nature connection activities, like sit spots or something, where like the goal is nature connection, and so the only goal is that, and it's almost like there is no purpose to it. Because
it's not like playing.
Because people are focused entirely on what is the goal. The goal is to notice nature. So what if I give you nothing to do but notice nature? And then that will be the thing. Whereas, like you're describing, the thing is like, what if I tell you that it's a hide and seek game? That's the goal. The goal is hide and seek. But the purpose is that you sit in nature and you notice things more acutely. Because the goal gives you purpose. And again, similarly, like that striving, like that striving player and that achievement player, an achievement player in a hide and seek game is the person that is like, oh, you found me. Oh, fuck's sake. Oh, you balls. No, you didn't find me. I was doing all this stuff, because they're so on the goal. The goal is the hiding. Whereas the striving player would be somebody that you go, oh, found you. And they go, oh, there's a worm here. Did you know that there was a worm here? Oh my God, I found the thing. And they tell you what they've seen while they've been hiding. Because as soon as the game stopped, their drive for winning is like, oh, okay, done. That served its served its purpose.
Or they might be thinking about like, oh, okay, I lost. That was a bit annoying. Next time, what was it that gave me away? Oh, maybe I was too visible because I thought that bramble was like thicker than than it actually was, and maybe I wasn't being quiet enough because actually, do you know what I mean? And all of those thinkings also sort of aid nature connection, because you are thinking strategically about what's around you and how you fit in that.
Definitely.
I love it.
It's so big.
Can I just say something? Because have you seen, this is such a tangent, when you were talking about standing in the river for 2 hours and doing nothing, I was like, but what he could do instead of fly fishing is to get a bucket with a glass bottom like the lady. Have you seen the lady? She finds the treasure in the river. Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God.
But then, see, mudlarking is also one of those things, isn't it, where you could be like, the goal is to find treasure, but actually the purpose is spending time out in the water and, noticing and all these things. Anyway, I could talk about that, but I need to hard pivot to the second half of this stuff.
Okay.
Because there's all this stuff about games and purpose and striving play, which I fucking love. There's also this thing in here about metrics and value capture and how scoring systems are like, that we need to be more aware of what scoring systems are. Okay, so he's talking about, he uses things like scoring systems and metrics and things, and talks about the fact that, like, basically there are some things, like, for example, health is a goal that we might have, right, is to be like, I would like to be more healthy. And lots of us could agree that, like, or like wider, you'd be like public health. We would like the people of this nation to be more healthy. The difficult thing is that often the most important things to measure, the most important things to us, are also the things that are the most personal, that are the most context driven, and the most difficult to measure. And so he talks about things like health, and then the fact that, to one person, health is like, I can get up and down the stairs in my house. And to another person, health is like, my respiratory system all works. And another person, health is say how much they can lift, right? But that's too sparse. It's too sporadic, as a thing. So, and this is where I'm wondering whether some of this will touch on your kind of research stuff that you're doing at uni, is that he then starts to talk about finding metrics which essentially promise that they are the thing instead. So, for example, you can't measure health because it's too varied. But there is something that is quant, data, which might be BMI. And so people start to go, oh, BMI, that's a measure of health. Great, we can mark BMI because BMI is objective. It's not done by any kind of decision making. It's not done personally. We could do that and that and that. And then he talks about this idea, which he calls value capture, which is when the idea of that quant data, the idea that BMI is important, becomes health. That you then associate that thing with a quant data, with a quantifiable metric, because it has value captured you. It has become your value system. Another example they use is like money, which is where, and the example being like, if you have somebody who is told that like success, which is a personal and wobbly and individual things. For some people, success is family. Some people it's, time off. For some people, it's holidays. But if you can start to go, well, success is earnings. Earnings equals success. And it's almost that flip of like one equals the other equals one. And then talks about people who like, that's where you end up with like these people who will just keep going once they have earned beyond their means, because it is like value. I'm successful if I have more money. That person is more successful than me because their number is more. Make number more. The number is the thing.
Or somebody who is totally focused on just weight as a measure of health and actually does not have, which apparently is, I mean, we have heard that BMI is so flawed. Like the things about, actually,
it's done on like 8 European white men. It's a fucking stupid system.
Yeah, it's like actually it doesn't measure anything about heart health and muscle strength and any of that sort of stuff.
All those context things. And so, so this is where I think it's interesting, because in the start of this book, they talk about value capture and how value capture makes you easier to control, because it tells you, if I stand outside and I have to say to you, like, remember, earning money today, we're earning money today, we're earning money today. That's quite labor intensive. But if I can get you to believe that good or successful equals money, now you're easier to manipulate because I can just move the levers. And I was thinking about, and I need to condense this because there's definitely a video in there somewhere, that like the value capture around please the adult, and that like the value capture of literacy in schools is not like, does that writing make you feel something? Does that writing help you express something you were having a hard time with? Is it widened your vocabulary? Essentially, so much of it boils down to, have you pleased the adult in the room? And maths is like, well, does this help me understand things? Can I cook better now? Can I do whatever else? Am I, it means please the adult in the room. And that actually how much of the schooling system is getting that into people, that please the adult in the room is the metric to how happy is that adult, that then goes into please the boss, please the MP, please the king or queen or whatever else. That to me was like, oh, that's peak value capture of like, well, you're way easier to control if you can get that into young people. And so he talks about in this book about the idea that games and having this kind of agency in games means that we, as we often do in the woods, where we would be like, well, what if we change the game? So it's not about how fast you get tagged, but it's about how many, what if we switch it? So I have all of the rugby tail tags on and we change the game that way. Does that make it more fun? What about, and like encouraging people to be reflective about the metrics that are being used to assess or judge what's happening, and that those people then can change and can shift and be like, do you know what, this isn't making me happy anymore. And then I was thinking, I'm spiraling this up and thinking about adults that, people that are young people that are with us now, and then when they're adults and going, God, I hope that person's practiced the skill of being like, do you know what, maybe like the number on my degree isn't the value metric of how intelligent or how happy I am. Maybe actually it's about, am I finding this? Or maybe it might be money. They might feel like money is their thing, but that they are choosing the metric for themselves, not being given the metric and told that that is what has to be important.
Yes. That's really interesting.
And it talks about, and then sorry, I'm going to waffle for a bit because oh my god,
Yeah,
this book is so juicy. And talking about like similar to that thing about process beauty, you know, we're talking about how good the movement is and whatever else. And he talks about cookbooks for a bit, and talks about that the metric that has been accepted for cookbooks is end product, is like the meal at the end. And in that, the context has been stripped away of that, like the end product and eating the food might be, I mean, if you're me, I eat like a, and it's gone. So it's like minutes. But the cooking could be 4 or 5 times as long as an experience as eating. But there are very few cooking books that focus on optimizing for the joy of the process. There are very few cooking books that go like, this is incredibly easy. This is so like joyful to make. Make sure you feel the dough at this point. Make sure this like makes your house smell nice. This bit, you know, there's a bit they're talking about chopping up some ingredient that's in a cookbook, and it's like it doesn't help the meal at all. It makes a nice smell for the chefs. That's why it's in the recipe, because someone has optimized for the cooking process, not the end product, and saying that like a lot of what we have now is like so end product focused, and it comes out of like restaurant chefs where it's like, so home cooks are expected to cook like they are 5 professionally working chefs of like, keep this on the boil and make sure that goes on and and that's the marker of success, is like what comes out at the end, as opposed to like what we could optimize for, which is like, but way harder, is judgment. It is like joy in the process, you know, and it's observing those things and saying that like the way that cookbooks are written influences that, and that they are a piece of technology which changes how we cook, because it you know, it gets rid of like, you know, a couple of handfuls of flour and it makes it 360 grams of flour. So we lose any, you know, we lose that kind of personal connection with what we're doing. And talks about, there's a really interesting bit there where he talks about technology legitimately changing people based on what the technology is. Because he's saying it like, one thing you'll hear is like that, the same idea of like, you know, like guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's the technology. It's not the technology's fault, right? But he is making the argument that sometimes technology does then retrospectively change people. So the example in the book, and this is really interesting to me, is that like OS maps, right? Maps, topographical maps, whatever else, are were originally produced by militaries, right? Which for a military, it's important to know height and, you know, the elevation of things and landmarks, so that if an invading army comes in, you can find weak points or whatever else. Those then that get sold to the public, and the value capture there is that we then start to take on board that the important things to know about an area geographically are the elevation, the landmarks, and the things like that. And he makes the point that it would be just as easy to map elevation as it would be to map sound pollution. You could have a map that had different colors on it, and for a vast number of people, that would actually be more interesting, more useful to go, this is a quiet area, it's very loud when you go through this back street at night. But because the technology came from the military, their values and their piece of technology, which is the map, gets fed to the public, and then the public changes their opinion of what's important on a map based on the technology that's given to them. And I was like, oh, there's a circular thing.
Yeah. I mean, the links there to education are hard to ignore, aren't they? In terms of, because my kids are at the secondary age, or one of them is, and so the amount of times we have conversations about what is important, all those things about teachers kind of just going, yeah, but it's your GCSE soon, oh my god, and like it's just being a cog in that system where it is just about that value. And I even said to my child, like the school that he's at finishes at year 11. I said, you wouldn't be getting such a hard time about your GCSEs if your school went up to year 13, because those teachers that are really grilling you guys about your GCSEs and how they're like the be all and end all of your entire life, they don't have year 13s to worry about. If they did have year 13s to worry about, they'd be grilling them about how the A levels were the most important thing, and you'd probably get a bit of a lighter ride, like.
And then those kids will grow up differently to kids that were in a school that does go up to a year 13, because they will go through and have this value capture of like, oh, GCSEs are really important, as opposed to other kids that will be like, GCSEs get you into A levels. And that changes. Those people will internalize it. Not just the school has those things, but they will get it into other people.
And all those like gifted and talented schemes and all those.
Oh, absolute wankery. Okay, before we jump off on the gifted stuff,
I'm not going to.
So I think there's a really interesting bit in here. In this book, they talk about the 4 horsemen that are
the
like
apocalypse.
So basically, he talks about the fact that like myths and legends are easier ways to remember all the things, and so like horsemen of the plague and whatever else are ways to teach us that like plague is important, right? So we should pay attention if that comes. So he talks about the 4 horsemen of value capture, right? And what they do. So I need to unpick some bits beforehand. So he talks about in the end of the book, he talks towards what makes a good fact in Western Europe has changed dramatically. And he said for a very long time, what made a good fact was that it came from a good person. And now what typically gets considered a good fact is something that comes with no people, excluding all of your like post-humanist stuff, all of this kind of stuff. But that broadly, the public perception is that like, if it's been done by if it's an opinion of an expert, that is not as good as an incredibly clinical, quant-based thing where you'd be like, it's so objective. It's a good fact because it's objective. Whereas he's saying that previously, for a very long time, a good fact was something that an expert believed, and that you would trust. You're like trusting the person, and that you're kind of going like, you are an esteemed person. It is too much for me to understand the inner workings of everything. But you, who have spent your life dedicated to light bulbs, are telling me that this is a good light bulb. And so that is a good fact. That is a fact. Whereas now we would be like, well, I don't want your opinion. I want to know the data for, how long it uses, what the wattage is, all this stuff. And we're like fully shifted. And he talks about those value judgments, particularly in education, but he talks about them in the arts and saying that like some things are very resistant to it. So the example he uses is skateboard tricks, and that a lot of like freestyle skateboard competitions are still run by judges that we basically put our trust in and go, we don't need to have an opinion on this. We trust that the judges will score a particularly good kip flip, a nice turn, or whatever else. There's already a removal there because they can't say, oh, kickflips are really hard for you, so you get more points than the person that kickflips are easy for. But that we're already outsourcing a bit. And then he's saying that the next step that people are trying to bring into that particular sport is objective quant data, where they're starting to go, well, we want to know about turns or air time or how long were you balanced for, because that doesn't involve a judge, it involves objective quant data. And his thing is that then that actually will influence the sport, because it will move what people try and do, because the points system changes what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And in, you know, you'd be like, well, what makes a great skateboarder? Yeah. Airtime of over 13 seconds. This many,
Yeah.
Very interesting. And so to talk about these horsemen, it talks about the horsemen of scale, and that scale is like this idea that you know you have to make things bigger, it has to be able to go wider, and that means that you have to like get rid of context. You have to like, let me find the exact bit because it's I will butcher this terribly. Okay. The Horseman of Scale gives us a powerful gift. He makes things comprehensible across vast territories, across different people. He connects us quickly and easily. The Horseman of Scale makes coordinated action possible across a great number of people. It's useful for all sorts of things: governments trying to manage citizens, corporations seeking profit, scientists, etc. But scale asks for sacrifice. To gain the power of scale, we can no longer make nuanced judgments and use our sensitive understandings that arise from our particular backgrounds, right? So he's not anti these things. He's just saying that like we kind of need to be aware of what they're doing and the price that we are paying for them. This speaks massively to me in an education sense, in terms of that thing of like, why don't we trust teachers anymore? Why aren't teachers being expected? Why are we judged on like exam results and all of this? And the thing of teachers being like, I just wish I was trusted more. But because the education system in the UK has got bigger and bigger and bigger, we want scalability. We want data that can be done across a whole county or a whole country inside of the UK, or inside of, you know, geographic areas or age groups or whatever else. And so with that, you have to acknowledge that you are, you know, the trade-off is all these other bits and pieces, you know. So there's stuff in there. Okay, so then the next one that he talks about is that these scores and these metrics and stuff, and he talks about the horsemen of bureaucracy, and that giving things process means that they are, you know, more efficient, basically. He talks about the example that they used to be sort of things of like, mathematics used to be principle driven rather than algorithm driven, right? And this idea that if it was like, how much water is it, mathematicians would be able to go, oh, well, I know a range of maths ways that we can talk about how much water. We could do weight, we can do volume, we can do area that it fills up inside at a certain pressure. Oh, which is the best one to use? And a mathematician's skill was in like knowing which principle to apply based on the context. But that the algorithmic decision making is to go volume. It's all volume. That's what we're going to do now. It's volume. It's volume. And the rules make things easier to scale up, and it makes things easier for like everyone to, you know, agree on, right? The next horseman is parts, and he talks about artisan shoemakers, and saying that like if you've got artisan shoemakers and they're all making them together, you could let one person go off on a personal project. And you could be like, it's one guy. He's going to try and make these shoes that curl up at the toes, right? Those kind of elfy ones, right? Great. They're an artisan shoemaker. The thing is that one person is now going to make those weird shoes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But where we've gone to parts, things are more efficient, but nobody can put variation in. You cannot, on a production line, have one person who goes, I'd really like to see what happens if the shoes are a bit longer, because it fucks up every single shoe in the production line, right? And so that's not doable. And also talks about us as workers being interchangeable, just like parts. So they talk about like screws being a massive part of uniformity. You know, we just accept that like screws are all the same. They've all got Phillips heads, right?
Yeah.
But that is an agreement that no artisan is going to be like, I actually use these kind of crazy screws that I've invented and whatever else. And saying that parts work also makes humans interchangeable, because you can just train that next human up to do the next thing. They don't need specialist knowledge. They don't need background stuff. They just need to know how to do that part in the machine. They are replaceable because the metric is efficiency, right? And I'm like, oh my God, so much stuff. And then the last one is the Horsemen of Control, where he's talking about this idea that control is like uniformity, and he talks about earlier in the book talks about like scoring is clarity, and that we can have like clarity fatigue. And so we can be like, the world is complicated, like we're constantly trying to like be good parents, right? But that's so weird and hard, and what does that mean? Is that food? Is that whatever? But when we play a game, you just have to get the blue sheep. And that's very calming, because there's no like, but you tell me this is how you get the blue sheep. And so it's my goals are very clear, and whether I've got blue sheep or not is very clear. And like, we need that. We need bits of that, but we shouldn't have it all the time. Right. And he's saying that control is that thing of like, we're giving up any nuanced discussion. We're giving up any kind of stuff. Control is like, send it all here. The government will then make decisions about what goes out. And so there is no discussion, there is no control, and all of these things. And what the thing that really got me, that thing about like, hang on. He's talking about in the bit, he does say that there are some things that needs these kind of quant metrics, right? Because, for example, like transparency in government, you want the government to know you want to know how much your MP took from different lobbyists. You don't want it to be like wads of data where you're like, well, this candidate is an excellent person who did the thing and they're lovely. You want to be like, he took 45 million, 100%. He took 10 grand, and that person's taken nothing.
And in the context of education, you also need it, because I was talking with somebody last week who is doing research about inclusion and access to higher education. So you need that quant data to work out, hang on a minute, kids in these postcodes do not go to university. And all the kids in these postcodes go to university, or those kind of things, or
there are cases
that
where it
raw
makes sense.
data that helps you to then get to the nuance. That data then gets you to the point where you can try and find out these people's stories, and they work together in that way. But if you didn't ever do any of the quant, then like, if you're trying to aim for justice,
the quant, if you went like, this postcode, people don't go to university, therefore we shouldn't let families live in this postcode. That would be where the quant would stop. But you're talking about going and finding the qualitative data, which is like, well, why is it? Why is the thing? This idea about mechanical scoring, foreclosing disagreements and private opinions, really struck a chord with me, because it reminded me how much, and I know I've done this, how much I see educators. You're facilitating a group, and you are genuinely scared that opening up a discussion is not going to be something that you can handle. You're not going to be able to control the group anymore. It's going to slow down the pace, or it's going to do whatever. So you go, it's whoever gets it in the basket. Get rid of any discussion about like, hey, should we talk about how to get it in the basket? Should we talk about like, what's the thing? And should we do, about like, and I can see fear in educators when they're leading stuff and they're like, oh no, this is going into personal opinion. The messy bit, which is so fucking juicy, because that is the juicy bit, but it is also the bit that is hardest
but if you
to
don't
hold.
have, and time consuming, and that is like, and that is a huge part, isn't it, of forest school as an alternative education setting, is that you get into that, or you can choose to get into that. It's available.
Some people do.
And yes, and the endless conversations we've had all together with the kids and everything, going, how are we going to like make decisions? Should we try sociocracy? Should we try this? Should we do, all those things of getting into, and that is different to, just because I said so, I'm making an arbitrary rule right now. Because that's just quicker. It's just quicker. I'm just older than you and my voice is louder, so it's just this.
When I stand up, I'm taller. God. All right. So my metrics, God. But that's just such an interesting thing. That's like, but also acknowledging that can sometimes be a useful tool if you have people who you're like, you're never going to agree but on the intricacies of like, where do your feet have to go when you climb the tree? But can you agree on a quant metric of like, this is how high you climb? And so sometimes there are benefits to it. And this is an interesting thing. It's just like, raising awareness of all these things is so interesting to me, to think about, like, what quant things have influenced my decision making, what qualitative things, and it's given me lots of tools, I think, to push back against anything that might come down the pipeline of, like, we're going to do self-esteem metrics for forest schools interventions. We're going to do this. Or if I'm working with people that come on the level 3 training, and they might go, well, my school wants to see 2 points of improvement in X, Y, and Z, and to go, okay, well, let's basically be really awkward to go, well, let's unpick that. Why is that the metric? Is that the thing that we want to do? Yeah. Can you get it to qualitative? And I realize we're running on a little bit. So I asked somebody else the question the other day, and I'd really like to know what you think about it. So it's a 2-part question. One is, are there any pedagogies that have baked into their kind of description that it must only be qualitative data? And if there aren't, what would happen if one of them were to do it? So I'm thinking about Montessori, Steiner. I'm thinking about, discovery learning, or any of those. And
Reggio Emilia and things like that.
I can't think of any of them that have actually pinned their colours to a qualitative mask and said, only this. With the exclusion of, here's the caveat, because somebody told the person that I was talking to said, well, you do a register, and a register is quant data. How many times have they turned up? And I was like, yeah, but that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. Could you have a pedagogy that said, the second you make it quant, it's no longer blim bomb?
So you're basically talking about assessment.
Yeah, assessment and observation can only be qualitative. You cannot put numbers in, otherwise it's not blim blom anymore.
I think. I wonder about Reggio Emilia. I don't know like tons about it. It's because it's early years. It's definitely like the earlier you get, the more likely you are to find those more nuanced assessments, aren't you?
Early years in general is a lot more qualitative than quantitative. But I was just interested in exploring that idea. Again, what would it do in terms of, like, giving teachers in that pedagogy a shield to be like, blim blom educator actually, and so I can't do. Well,
maybe we should find out some more stuff about Reggio Emilia and do a podcast on that, and have maybe have somebody who's really experienced, because I'm just reading about it at the moment. So it's in Italy. It's in this town. They've decided we're going to do education like this, and it's about is it the 1,000 languages of children? Some people listening to this will be absolutely expert in Reggio Emilia. They'll be like, no, what are you guys talking about? No. Because if you're an early years person, that's your bag. But it's very much about
the other day who came and told me, because we were talking about birds and trachea, and someone came and told me, and they were like, I listened to your podcast, that's not what a trachea is. I was screaming, and I went, yeah, the thing is, we don't know much, so individually we'll just piss off each group who does know more, and we kind of sit in the middle.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's my I genuinely would recommend this book. It's got so many like drive-by references as well. So I've picked up another book that's just further back there called Grasshopper, which is all about are games the utopia? And in this book they mention about, Aristotle says, like, if you had all your basic needs met, if you had food and clothing and housing and whatever else, what would you do with your time? Because he argues that that's what a utopia would be. And he argues that we would essentially make games. And then he talks about, the idea that, like, even in those processes of getting food and shelter and whatever else, it makes me think about den building and stuff that we're doing in the woods, that he argues that actually those are goals, but the purpose is enjoyment and happiness, because once we've got a shelter and enough food, we don't just lie completely still. We find new things to play. We find new ways to kind of be like, what else is this? Can I leave you with one more thought before we go? Because they're talking in this about scale and, making things easier, and who is it making things easier for, and how that changes things. How much would you like to switch to something called diurnal time? So diurnal time pins 12 o'clock to midday everywhere. When it is midday, it is 12 o'clock. When the sun comes up, it is 6 o'clock. And when the sun goes down, it is 6 o'clock. In the winter, it is 6 o'clock when the sun comes up, and the hours are shorter, and the day is shorter, but 12 is still in the middle. And in the summer, the hours are longer, and 12 o'clock is still in the middle. And they talk about the fact that that used to be how we saw time in a lot of countries in Europe, because in the summer there's a bit more to do, there's a bit more light, everybody knew when the sun came up, and that it's fixed time is all to do with like trains and industrialization and coordination across country. The idea of running long, leisurely outdoor forest school days in the summer where you're like, we could just be out here for ages, that's grand. And in the winter being like, okay, let's go home. We've been here for 45 minutes, which is technically 12 hours.
Exactly.
Let's go.
Yes. I have a bit of reputation at home at the moment for like running to bed. Like bed is just amazing. Just go to sleep. Good. Just go to sleep now. Let's all just go to sleep. Okay, bye. I'm going to sleep. Bye.
We have in my house sometimes we'll go, oh no, I just thought about bed. Oh dear, because it's so tempting and inviting at this time of year. It's just like, oh no, I thought about it. Do you do the thing where you get into bed and you do I do a little run? Do you get into bed and you kind of go
in your bed?
Yeah.
No.
Do you not do that?
I don't.
What do you do when you get in? Do you just lie completely still?
I do quite a lot of
oh no.
Foot rubbing. Rubbing.
Cricketing. They call it grasshoppering or cricketing.
Yeah. Oh right, I love that word. Yes.
Yeah.
And the toe in the toe in the other toe in the toe, rubby rub. There's someone else's foot there. Have a bit of rub of that as well. Blah blah blah. Rubby rub. That's what I do. Lovely.
Exciting. On that mental image.
Night night.
This is lush. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this book. Can we next time do ludobotany loose parts? Because I want to talk about pine cones and conkers and acorns and all the things.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, yes. Thanks, mate.
Bye. Nice. See ya. Bye.